With great pleasure, I welcome you to today's discussion on TMI Tuesday, and we're looking at pandemic lockdown reopening strategy. You agree with me that for quite some time now, the world has been finding a way to really unwrap all of this solution about tackling the virus COVID-19. And a week ago, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 submitted a report to the President informing the need to really take strict measures again on some areas of curtailing the spread. And that was what brought about the announcement of the President on extending the partial lockdown across the states of the Federation by 2 weeks. And that means looking at trade and commerce activities still on the hold in some places, and basically the aspect of the maritime aviation, the SMEs really still looking at a way of finding their feet. So this is where we will be discussing this, and I have a very, very erudite analyst with me. Starting from my extreme left, I have a lecturer, University of Benin Department of Political Science, a political analyst, Neville Obakedo. Thanks for coming, Neville.
Thanks for having me. Good morning, viewers at home.
And I have an economy expert, lecturer, University of Benin Department of Economics, and he is Dr. Nosa Arodai. Thanks for coming, Nosa.
Thank you for inviting me.
I start with you, Neville Obakedo. Now, you always find a way to look at the polity and looking at ways to provide solutions to the political issues that could be coming. But now, the COVID-19 protocol, which came up, it's really finding a way of having issues with many persons. We have the challenge of congregating. We have the challenge of some church leaders, mosque leaders saying that they should be left alone. Now, this behavioral change seems not to be upon Nigerians in fighting the scourge. What do you make of this development to fighting COVID-19?
First and foremost, the subject matter of COVID-19, the way and manner China as a country or nation state went about the outbreak, the management, and later communicated to the world the outbreak of a flu-like and pneumonia-like disease, as they referred to it when they were reporting the case to the World Health Organization. They are hoarding of statistics. And the way and manner it appears that the World Health Organization is working with China in close relationship with the crisis that the world is facing is raising fundamental questions, not only in other countries like America or other places. It's also raising fundamental questions about whether there's COVID-19 in real sense, whether it's another phenomenon that is killing people around the world. And because of the fact that most government, including Nigeria government, they have not deployed their enormous resources to embark on researches that can actually identify the existence of this disease in Nigeria with a view to developing either a vaccine or a solution. This is what is having a reverberating effect on the way and manner people are reacting to COVID-19. For example, people are asked to maintain social distancing. What the government was supposed to do to make people maintain social distancing, the government failed to do that. In other places or in other climes where government is emphasizing social distancing, government will make sure that what you need to survive in the course of the lockdown and try to maintain social distancing is provided for you. Here in our country, that is missing. Even though we are seeing some palliatives, maybe on television or radio, on the pages of newspaper, but down there, it's only a minutest part of the population that is experiencing the existence of government in terms of try to address the development and the spread of COVID-19. Now, people, as a result of that frustration, they become aggressive and become disobedient to government restrictions. That is what is affecting whether churches or mosques or marketplaces. Because people feel that if I must stay at home and not die of COVID-19, if it is actually in existence here, then government should provide for me. Government should, at least for once, be alive to its responsibility to protect the citizens while they are on lockdown. If the government fails to do so, if I die of trying to survive by coming out and disobey government restriction, it's better for me than to die indoors because government says stay indoors because of the existence of COVID-19. And it shows that, number one, the state is weak. The state is weak. When I say the state, Nigeria state or several other states, they are weak in their responsibility. Their responsibility to ensure that there's security, their responsibility to ensure that there's a qualitative delivery of services to the people. In this context, health services. In this context, social services. And for the people to accord them legitimacy becomes a crisis. It is that crisis that has been in existence before now that is vibrating now.
Okay,
in terms of behavioral change or the behavior of the people.
If you say the state is weak,
yes.
Let's look at developed polities. Because this discourse is going around across the globe, where a lot of persons, even while states are being reopened, a lot of persons are still violating the directives, the ban on crowds, on crowded people, crowded persons communicating without a face mask. Now, if you look at the U.S. polity, for instance, we still have issues of violations there. Will you say that the U.S. state is weak?
When I say states are weak, the weakness of a state or incapacitation of a state is not whether the state is an advanced state like the United States or whether the state is as weak as the developing state in Sub-Saharan Africa or elsewhere in the Asian subcontinent. When we say a state is weak or a state is collapsed or a state is failing, there are indicators. The inability of government to compel obedience on the citizens is a form of weakness. It's a manifestation of weakness. Whether it is in America or in Nigeria, it does not matter. If America that is divided, I was listening to some political analysts in America some days ago about the presidential election that is looming the horizon, and I listened very carefully and I discovered that in the history of America, according to the analyst on CNN and other international television stations, that the president that has presided over a much divided America is President Donald Trump. And while in this very crisis of the global pandemic of COVID-19, instead of trying to rally Americans around a health solution, social solution, the man is talking politics and the man is talking division.
Okay, so that could be the reason why all of this resistance could be coming up,
yes,
even in the U.S. states.
Yes, it is okay, as a result of the...
Now let's also look at the attitude of the persons, of citizens, of worshippers, like in the Eid prayers, for instance, during this Eid Fitr celebration. It was cutting across Africa and Nigeria, for instance, also. There were some states who violated that instruction on congregational Eid prayers prohibition. Even the president did say that there shouldn't be congregational Eid prayers. But we still had this because they felt, well, they shouldn't be denied of that worship, of that opportunity to congregate. Don't you think that is also a problem to the governments?
You know, the first question you asked me centered around behavioral change. That behavioral change is not only a change that the citizens, as a citizen outside the management of the state, should embark on. The behavioral change should also be what security agencies should also purge themselves of. One, the president made several broadcasts to the people of Nigeria and said that Lagos State was on lockdown, Ogun State was on lockdown, Federal Capital on lockdown. But you still see people, whether they are Almajiris or whatever they are, they can move from Zamfara State to Edo State to Rivers State to other parts of the country. They are passing through, before you can come from Abuja to Edo State, for example, you pass at least 50 police checkpoints. The police will see them, the soldiers will see them, task forces across all these states will see them, they will collect money from them and allow them to pass. So in that situation, if the people, it takes two to tango. Why the people do not want to obey the law? Because they know that there are security agencies that will aid them to break the law. Let's talk about Edo State here, our own state. The other day, I was listening to a top government functionary who said that the governor personally went to Iyaro for whether to get fuel or something, and he saw some vehicles, some buses line up around 8 p.m. They were going to Lagos, the same Lagos that the federal president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria said was on lockdown. And in the course of trying to gather information, they discovered that they pay more to go to Lagos because, according to them, one passenger will pay 1,000 extra outside of the transport fare that the driver will give to the security agents on the way to enter Lagos. And I watched TVC and channel television. I saw security men wearing uniform, but whether police, whether road safety, whether soldiers along the road, collecting money to allow people to enter Lagos, to come out of Lagos. Those people need the attitudinal change. Now, the issue of the religious bodies, it is somebody who is alive that can serve God. If you are alive, that is when you serve God. If you are no longer alive, you are gone. It is between you and God in terms of judgment. Now, the religious leaders, they need orientation. They need attitudinal change to appeal to their people that it's only those who are alive that can serve God, whether in the church or in the mosque or even in the shrine by those that are practicing African traditional religion. Now, let's look at it from this angle. Number one, the president, who is a Muslim, gave an order that people should maintain social distancing. They refuse to maintain social distancing. Can the president come to Benin and arrest Muslims who were going for Eid prayer for not obeying the president? No. Security agencies were supposed to arrest the leaders of those people who were violating the order. The head of the Muslim Ummah in Nigeria, the Sultan of Sokoto, gave an order that Muslims should observe their Eid prayers in their various houses instead of congregating. Yet I saw in Kano and other places people violating the order of the head of the Muslim Ummah in Nigeria. It's a sign of the weakness of the state and the deliberate will of the people to disobey lawful order. And that is a question mark for the survival of the state. Okay. And unless something drastic is done in terms of compelling people to obey the law, the state here in Nigeria and the state elsewhere will continue to witness crisis of insecurity and disobedience to lawful order.
Thank you. Let's look at the economic angle, Dr. Nosa. Now we have issues about the maritime, the aviation, the commerce and industry, trade, really still on lockdown. And to a great extent, we expect mathematically that from June 1, there will be an ease on this, even the interstate lockdown. What impact do you see as falling on these sectors of the economy as they reopen?
Okay, thank you very much. In the first instance, thinking that COVID-19 does not exist, it's surprising. COVID-19 actually exists. The virus, the infectious disease exists. And I must tell my viewers to be very careful and cautious. It exists. Then the issue of COVID-19 is not just an epistemological issue. It also has its own economic consequences. It has its own economic consequences. Actually, the world is facing what we call a twin shock. Sorry, the world is facing a twin shock. Twin shock in the sense that you have the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, and we also have the oil price war. These are the twin shock that the world is, sorry for me to bring down this. Okay. The world is facing this twin shock. The COVID-19 pandemic and the oil price war. Hence, the COVID-19 pandemic has its own epistemological issues, that is the health side of it, and it also has the economic side of it. The issue is that the global issues around COVID-19 is not isolated to Nigeria. It's not a Nigerian issue. We should not look at it from the perspective of Nigeria. The World Health Organization make policy directions, give policy suggestions and simulations, not just for Nigeria. It makes such decisions for the world. For instance, World Bank is proposing or has given about $160 billion as a global support. Then the IMF of recently gave about $3.4 billion to Nigeria as a rapid financing instrument to support the the possible external or medium-term macroeconomic instability or shock.
Okay, can that be like a stimulus?
A stimulus package, a stimulus. In short, fiscal stimulus package.
Okay.
And CBN in Nigeria has also established some monetary stimulus packages, which we will discuss as we progress on this program.
Okay.
But most importantly, I agree with my fellow discussant saying that there's no political will. I agree with him. I quite agree with him. Okay. But the doubt about the existence of COVID-19, I don't agree. COVID-19 is here, and it exists, and we must be very, very careful about it.
Okay, but the attitude of the citizens
yeah, the attitude of the citizens
seem not to cooperate with the government directive.
Yeah, the attitude of the citizens is, as he earlier said, is not just caused by the citizens themselves, but because the government lack the political will to institute set guidelines. As he said, I know some persons that they've come back from Abuja, Lagos, all part of the country. I keep on wondering if the interstate lockdown actually work. I keep on wondering. That political will is not there. Then the citizens, the acceptability, that is where the economics comes in. The acceptability of these guidelines are not appropriate. The reason being that they feel that the government is not giving them enough reassurance in terms of palliative and some economic stimulus. For instance, but the government is also trying to do their part because the economic emergency bill is before the National Assembly, you know, to stir up the economy, to avoid some post-COVID crisis. The government is also doing their part, but what they are doing is not actually enough.
Okay.
In terms of palliative, my disappointment is that, for instance, where I came from, there are people that are complaining that the palliative are shared or distributed on the basis of the political parties you belong to, which is not supposed to be done.
Okay.
Politics is not supposed to be in this issue at all. Okay.
But let's look at the SMEs. Because like in the US, we have a record where it's been said that close to 40 million job losses are already taken place. Now, if you compare that figure to that of Nigeria, will you say that we should be up for losses in jobs as the economy opens any moment from now?
Yes, even the International Labour Organization has projected that there's going to be a likelihood of about 1.3 billion job losses in the world, and Nigeria is not an exception. And there is another proposition that about 432 million enterprises may close down as a result of this global meltdown. But Nigeria is taking some steps.
Yes, like you spoke about the stimulus package. You spoke about the stimulus package,
has given out about 50 billion naira as credit facilities to micro, small, and medium-scale enterprises.
Okay.
To stir up their operations, to avoid sudden shocks from this COVID-19. Government is also doing some part. And government is also reducing some interest rates coming out from the CBN interventions.
Okay, but if you are saying that, what's the surety that this stimulus will trickle down? Because we have a lot of small business owners like hairdressing salons, you know. What's the surety that it will trickle down?
The problem actually, if I want to address this issue, the problem actually is that the data collection system in Nigeria is poor.
So that could be a setback?
It's a setback because we don't actually have a database of the small and medium scale enterprises in Nigeria. Nigerian economy is highly driven by the informal sector. Over 70% of the activities in Nigerian economy are driven by the informal sector. And we don't actually have the database of this informal sector. That is my worry. It is one thing to release the funds. It's another thing to distribute the funds. It's another thing to see the likely impacts of the funds on the vulnerable SMEs. But the government keep on saying that they know what to do, they know what to do. They have not seen anything. I have not seen anything in the sense that the small and medium scale enterprises, we don't know them. The few ones that are known may not be the ones that are shaking. You see the challenge. Those are the challenges. Data collection, data compilation, and data management is actually poor. It's poor. Apart from just the IMF is also giving another $50 billion. The International Finance Corporation is giving about $8 billion. Not just to Nigeria, globally.
Okay, but how do we drive this to ensure that it gets to really the vulnerable small business owners?
Yes, the point is that I keep on proposing, but the Nigerians may not be listening. We need economists. We need research and development economists to build a model. To build a model. Yesterday, I was looking at the epic curve of COVID-19, how the whole event is unfolding. You know, I was a little bit excited. But my worry is that I've not seen an economic model that will address this issue. I was proposing, and I will also recommend, that there should be two forms of models to address these issues in terms of the health side of it and the economic side of it. Household and institution models.
Okay.
There should be a household survey, household registration. Thanks to the governor of Edo State, I can see some things he's doing. They are registering some market women, trying to take statistics in case you are reopening, to know those, doing some testing and all that. We know Edo State has the highest prevalence rate in South-South, about 48%.
Wow.
Of the total confirmed cases in South-South is from Edo State. Why is it so? Because the governor is taking some steps. Though the steps may not be too good enough, but it's better off in the South-South.
Okay, thank you. Back to you, Neville Obakedo. Now, let's look at the response to the government. Like you did say, that the government is not having that much of political will to drive the obedience of the citizens. But so far, the president's task force on COVID-19, which is being headed by Boss Mustafa, has brought about guidelines, has brought about procedures at which there will be easing off gradually of this restriction on the lockdown. Now, as we hope that from June 1, there will be opening of some of the sectors of the economy, do you think it is ripe at this present time where we don't have a flattened curve of the virus receding?
Before I answer the question, I want viewers at home to know that the subject matter of COVID-19 is an ongoing debate, international debate, with certain theories for and against. I did not come here to say that COVID-19 is not in existence. I didn't say so. But there are people who have said that there is a conspiracy between the Gates Organization or Foundation, some powerful pharmaceutical companies around the world, working with China and the World Health Organization to develop this coronavirus that is affecting the world. That information is in public domain.
And that seems to be also affecting your sensibilities towards this fight.
As a teacher, when there is a debate, we have to take from the right, from the left, based on scientific, socio-scientific phenomena that are available to be able to draw my conclusion. Just now, I have not drawn a conclusion because there are authorities of government, both local and international, that give direction about whether it is economic pandemic or global pandemic in terms of health. And as we speak, the world is facing health crisis. I've been opportune to discuss with some medical experts who have said that if what is killing people in the advanced world and other places is COVID-19, that it is not in Africa. I do not want to argue with them. They have their own reasons for arguing along that line. But we are aware that people have come up with the issue of 5G network. People have come up with the issue of China trying to dominate the economy of the world, crippling other places because the whole of China was not shut down, just like other countries are shut down. And life is returning to normal, not only in Wuhan, but in other places. That is, by the way, COVID-19 is in existence. I did not say it's not in existence.
Okay.
But it is an ongoing debate, and time shall tell whether these theories that are for and against, the one that we carry today, may God keep us alive to see the outcome.
Okay, back to
now,
the question.
Back to the question of loosening the lockdown. I said just now that the lockdown, in quote, has not been effective. So loosening it is like government institutions, well-organized private sector that have been shut down, they want to reopen. Why did I say government institution? The other day I listened to some governors, including our state governor, saying that social category of workers, government workers, should work from home, while social categories or levels so should be the one to report to work. That is partial lockdown, or preventive lockdown, or emergency lockdown. We believe that those persons have been working from home. Now, if government want them to return back to their duty post, they need to be tested so that their COVID-19 status can be ascertained, whether they will now go for treatment at isolation centers. That is that for whether local government staff or federal government staff or state government staff. Now, we are talking of markets. I've moved around this city and I've seen what the state governor is doing. Try to open the market, but ensuring that market men and women are tested before, to know their COVID-19 status before.
Increasing testing capacity.
Yes. Now, we now look at the federal government. If the federal government want to ease the lockdown, one, the federal government should know that virtually everybody in Nigeria, apart from those that are highly placed in government, they are be vulnerable
to
COVID-19.
The whole sector should be opened.
No, the opening should be in phases.
In phases.
Yes. Then there should be increased capacity to test for COVID-19 for individual status to be ascertained
as they reopen.
Yes, before you reopen.
Okay.
For example, if you want to open an institution like the University of Benin, you open centers where the staff of the university and students will go and ascertain their COVID-19 status, so that if they are positive, they can go for treatment, and if they are not positive, they should ensure that the guidelines provided by World Health Organization and have been added down to us through our governments, they are strictly abide by.
But if government is to go on that lane, do you think they have the resources to go on that lane, looking at increasing testing capacity before reopening?
Just now, I was listening to my co-discussor when he was talking about provisions that have been made by World Bank to nation states, provisions that have been made by the International Monetary Fund to Nigeria. I'm also aware that nations like Germany and some other countries, they have given some money to Nigeria, to the Nigerian government. I'm aware that NDDC, for example, is giving some money to South states. I'm aware that some powerful private organizations are giving money to government.
So it's enough to deploy to such use.
This is the time, for the first time, as I said earlier, that government should be alive to its responsibility in terms of protecting the lives of the people, not in the area of insecurity of maybe criminals now, in the area of insecurity of health. Because for the first time, no matter how qualitative our health facilities have been, our health facilities, whether international or local or national, are facing the highest level of pressure that they have never faced before.
Okay, thank you.
And to be able to make my last statement on this question that you have asked me, those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat history. In the 1920s and 30s, there was a Great Depression. Whatever steps that were taken by the governments then, we can go and visit them and see if there are lessons to learn to apply to this very present situation. In 2007, 2008, up to 2009, 2010, we had the global financial crisis. The steps that were taken by governments to bail the world out of the crisis at that time, some of them can still be utilized by the world system, world economic system now, in trying to address the consequences of...
Government seems to be having a lot of challenge, like the aspect you mentioned about the intervention, the stimulus packages, which Neville Obagedo did say that it should also be channeled to increase the capacity of testing in Nigeria as we reopen the various sectors of the economy. Do you think government has the wherewithal?
In the first instance, reopening the economy, it's very important. Very important. I quite agree with him that it's going to be a phase-by-phase opening. It's going to be restrictive and conservative strategy in opening the economy and the institutions.
But we have to consider the curve. It's not flattened yet.
No, the curve is not flattened. It's not flattened because of the weak testing capacity. We've just tested about 45,600 something. You know, just 45,000. That's what we've tested. And the confirmed cases as at yesterday night was about 8,068, which is about 17.7% from the number of cases that have been tested. The confirmed cases is just 17%. And the federal government have a projection of testing 2 million Nigerians in 3 months. And if this epic curve of this epistemological effect continues, that means if we test 2 million Nigerians in 3 months, there are expectations or projections that will have about 340,000 confirmed cases. And don't forget, Lagos State, the Commissioner of Health in Lagos State, Professor Akin Abayomi, said July, there's a projection that you may have about 100,000 plus, about 100,000 to 120,000 confirmed cases in Lagos. He was speaking from the position of data. Because the normal thing government should do is to have a model, which we don't actually have now. Apart from Lagos State have some relative kind of models addressing some
But don't you think government is already working on a model? Because even the finance minister, Zainab Ahmed, did say that even at the ending of August, we could be having 300,000 cases. Looking at that, there should be a model that they're using.
I agree with Mr. Neville, saying that it's one thing, it's just to say something. You can say something. As an economist, I don't speak from public opinion.
Okay.
I speak from data standpoint.
Okay.
What is the data saying? What are the life counts of the confirmed cases? For instance, the deaths, the number of deaths, because we can't say it's death rate because it's not in thousands. The number of deaths as at yesterday was about 233, which is about 2.9% of the total number of confirmed cases. And it means we are not doing enough. We were at our peak in May. And remember where we are coming from. From 1 in March, and we are now in about 8,000 plus. And we've not tested enough. I also agree with him, reopening, there are some preconditions or prerequisites that must be undertaken. Some tasks that must be undertaken. One.
By organizations?
By the government first.
Okay.
The government first. And the Nigerian government, the laxity, that's what I'm not comfortable with. The laxity in terms of lockdown. Lockdown is not actually a lockout.
Okay.
You don't lock an economy out. Locking down means it's not even a comprehensive lockdown. It's actually a partial lockdown.
Yeah.
I can give you a case study. University of Benin, where I come from, is a good example for lockdown strategy. If you go to University of Benin, I was there yesterday, I was amazed. I was impressed by the actions taken by the current Vice Chancellor. This amiable Vice Chancellor has renovated structures. She's working on desk. She's putting in place strategies.
And back to the subject.
Now, what it means is that she's preparing. Lockdown is a time to prepare for reopening. It's not a time to relax. Nigerian government is relaxing. You just say we shift, we extend, we do this. What are the strategies in place to reopen? Are we actually prepared for reopening? For instance, do we have a database of the students in institutions, where they are coming from? Do we have the demography of these students? Do we have the age structure? Because do we have the vital statistics?
But we must start from somewhere. And
no, but these are basic.
But we must start from somewhere.
Basic. It's so disappointing and disheartening that we don't have vital statistics.
Okay.
World Health Organization has told us there's a class of persons that are more vulnerable to the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemics. The older groups, those with medical challenges, like cardiovascular problems, diabetes, cancer, and all sorts of things like that. Do we have this? Isolation does not mean the absence of consolidation.
Okay, but the economy is a priority here.
Yes.
Because the virus seems to be living with us as we speak.
Yes.
And we can't say because of the virus we shut the economy. Yes. Now, my concern here is the likelihood of job losses. What do you think the government should be doing in tracking, since there's no database as such to track even the small business owners? Now, the money that is trickling down, what do you think the government should do to capture even the small business owners?
Yes,
even at the state and local level.
Yes, yes. The CBN, as I said earlier on, has given out 50 billion naira as credit facilities to micro, not just micro, small and medium scale enterprises.
Okay.
And the central bank is rendering some monetary stimulus packages, like reducing the interest rates of all CBN intervention policies.
How do business owners at small level assess that?
No, how do they assess that? Through the banking sector. Domestic credits from bank to the private sector via the SMEs. Reducing such interest rates means that the cost of getting funds will be reduced. But that is not actually enough. That is not enough because it will not affect the informal sector more appropriately.
Okay.
What the government should do, my own recommendation is that these funds that are trickling in, that are entry every time, UN, World Bank, all these funds, should be in a centralized account. And the Central Bank of Nigeria should work with the Corporate Affairs Commission that register these businesses, and get the addresses of these businesses, get the contacts of the owners of these businesses, and distribute these funds more strategically. For instance, the bailout funds to the manufacturing sector is just about 1 trillion naira. That's what government is proposing. 1 trillion naira, about 100 million to the health sector. That's the proposition of the government. Okay. That 1 trillion to the manufacturing is not enough. The US is giving $2 trillion to bail out the economy in the first instance.
That's a developed polity. There's a huge gulf between the developing and developed.
The problem I have is that complaining that we don't have resources is surprising. We have resources. The problem we have is managing these resources. Job losses. There are likelihood for job losses, most especially in the informal sector.
In the informal sector?
In the informal sector. The public sector or the public organized sectors or institutions, there may not be too much effect because the government is in charge. They may be able to borrow some funds.
But if you look at what the finance minister, Zainab Ahmed, did say, that we could be experiencing a shock, a contract of about 8.9% depression as a result of the recession on our economy.
It's not actually
don't you think that could amount to job losses even at government level?
She's not actually the originator of that figure.
Okay.
It's IMF. IMF projected that the global economy is going to experience the worst kind of recession ever. Recession deeper than that of the Great Depression of 1930s. That this depression may take us down. There may be some headwinds in terms of growth rate that may take us back to about minus 3.9 deeper.
Okay,
that's
so if you put the country into the picture,
what that means is that weaker economies will suffer. Weaker economies, that's emerging and developing economies, which Nigeria is inclusive of, may suffer. And the Minister of the Minister of Finance and some economic experts have also recommended that these private institutions between 31st of March 2020 to 31st of December 2020 that have refused to reduce their workforce should be given some tax refunds of about 50%.
Okay.
These are policy that government is trying to make now. And don't forget, as we are having the technical committee or the presidential task force, we also have the economic sustainability committee, which the vice president is the chairman of that committee. They are also working out plans to make sure that the post-COVID experience will not be worse, because already facing some economic crisis, even before COVID. We were just at about 2.3% GDP growth rate. As at yesterday here, the growth rate has fallen to about 1.87%, according to the National Bureau of Statistics. That means the growth trend is going down.
It's going down.
The growth experiences is getting worse and weaker. Then we need more fiscal and monetary stimulus packages.
Okay.
And
government needs to take a lot of actions to reduce cost.
Yes.
Okay, cost of governance.
Cost of governance.
Okay, thank you. In case you're just watching us as TMI Tuesday, and I've been having a chat with the political analyst, Neville Obakedo, who is a lecturer of the University of Benin Department of Political Science, and of course, Dr. Nosa Aradoye, who is also a lecturer at University of Benin Department of Economics. And the topic before us is on the pandemic lockdown reopening strategy. Now, we talk about Neville Obakedo. We talk about the need for the government to find a way to reduce costs. But before I take you there, let's look at the aspect of religious centers, for instance, that has been on lockdown, and the drive, the urge, the desire of worshippers to congregate. Now, it's no longer going to be as usual because we have now the new normal. What do you see as a strategy for worship centers in terms of congregating members?
First and foremost, serving God, in quote, is a personal thing. If you are in the toilet, you can be serving God there. If you are in a cave, you can be serving God. If you are alone in the farm, you can serve God. If you are alone in your room, you can serve God. It's just that there are certain passages from scriptures that say that you should not forsake the assembly
of the saints.
Yes, the gathering of
the saints.
Yes. And so some preachers tend to emphasize the need to continue to congregate. And that takes me back to the issue of the lockdown, whether there was lockdown at all or whether there was observers of the lockdown. As I move around, try to gather information about this COVID-19 experience, you will see some churches in particular, they will close their main entrance. Then they will go and open a door by the side. You see members of the church going there for services. And there will be no mic. There will be no mic so that people will not know that a service is going on there. We have also seen some cases where some preachers were arrested across the country, try to evaluate government decision about gathering together, social gathering. Now, it is just to show that many people are ignorant. Assuming COVID-19 is not in existence, assume it's not in existence, assume it's not in Nigeria, our government is saying it is in Nigeria. Stay safe. Don't gather where people are gathering because of your own safety. You have to obey. If it is in existence and you are saying it's not in existence, you can die in that process. You have something to lose. But if you stay at home and if it's not in existence, you have not lost anything.
So you give benefit of doubt to the government?
Yes. But you see recalcitrant preachers, either because of the offering or the tithes or the sowing of seed that they are interested in. They want to flout the order of government by gathering people and preaching to them. Now, it shows that those preachers themselves, they lack knowledge, because all religious books command the worshippers, command the followers of their grand master to obey laws of government, to be to be subjected to constituted authority.
Okay, but going forward, don't you think if the worship centers are not reopened any moment from June 1, don't you think it will be provoking or spiking the eye of church leaders and mosque leaders?
Well, before I say that, before I answer that aspect, you see that there are several ministries like Deeper Christian Life Ministry. The pastor is preaching to members in their various homes through the internet. So on Sunday, you with your family can stay and listen to message from the pastor, live message. On Monday Bible study, you can listen to the pastor either through radio or the internet. The same with or Thursday service. The same with Tuesday leadership meeting, or the same with Saturday workers meeting. I've also seen pastors like Archbishop Duncan Williams preaching to members, and several other pastors preaching to members across the world.
Are you saying that should be the status quo until there's a vaccine?
Now, as I said earlier, you need to be alive to serve God. If you are alive, you can serve God. If you are not alive, you can no longer serve God. It's not between you and God in terms of judgment. Now, church leaders, religious leaders, must try as much as possible to obey the order of government on social distancing and social gathering. Now, I saw the other day in Katsina State when the president talked about lockdown. People came outside on a Friday. They were protesting. That protest even led to that death of 1 or 2 persons. They said they must organize their normal Friday Juma service. That was on the basis of ignorance. And that becomes an assignment for religious leaders now. That the religious leaders themselves, some of them are not educated. Even though they may be preaching the Bible, they may be preaching the Quran. They need to be educated now.
So that should be part of the responsibility of the
yes,
PTF,
in an attempt,
Presidential Task Force on COVID-19.
In an attempt to ease the lockdown and for us to return back to our normal life, we need to educate the people. We need to educate religious leaders, whether Christians or Muslim or African traditional worshippers. We need to educate even traditional rulers, market men and women.
So by that you are saying that the PTF on COVID-19 should have a forum to educate these religious leaders at their various levels before they can even attempt to reopen. But for now, it should be, for now there should be a maintenance of the status quo.
Yes.
Okay.
Because without that, if there is a terrible outbreak of coronavirus disease in Nigeria, the first set of people to be affected, worse than what we are seeing in America, will be those fanatical religious people who do not want to obey the order of government or the health prescription by the medical experts, whether through the World Health Organization or through task forces, whether presidential task force or state task force. And so those religious leaders who are listening just now, they should not think that era of COVID-19 has said they should not be related with their God or their creator. It is just a phase that the world is passing through, that the nation is passing through, and they need to stay alive to be able to continue to worship God. And that disobedience to constituted authority is a sign of disobedience to God, as written in the scriptures.
Cost of governance has been cited as the way forward, looking at the need to really help the economy to grow in Nigeria, for instance. What do you make as the first point of call for Nigerian government in terms of this?
When we talk about cost of governance, there are so many avenues through which government resources are siphoned, whether at local level, whether at state level, whether at federal level. Number one, all local government chairmen, whether elected or caretaker local government chairmen, they have what we call security vote that they get from monthly allocation, not from internally generated revenue. As the money is coming from monthly allocation, that money is removed. The amount varies from local government to local government, from state to state. Now, this period of COVID-19, we don't know how COVID-19 will last. We don't know how long it will last. But we also know that there are several other viruses, respiratory-related viruses, that are hanging the horizon to affect mankind.
Where is it hanging? Because if you say that,
yes.
if you say that, they
Yes.
should be verifiable.
Yes.
And now this is not to scare
Yeah.
the viewers,
No, it's
but
not to scare the
for
viewers.
now we are not aware of that.
Yeah, it's not to scare the viewers.
Okay.
Let me digress a bit. This COVID-19 that we are talking about, in about 12 years ago, President George Bush Jr. was telling Americans that there was a virus. Information from Health and Human Services Department said there was a virus that was going to affect the world, and America will be worst hit. That the American government, under his leadership, and those that will come after him, should put a machinery in place to ensure that when this virus breaks out, the effect that it was going to have will be less.
Minimal.
I'm sure the American government, under him and those that came after him, did not take that advice seriously. Now, in 2017, one brand, B-R-Y-A-N, Walsh, W-A-L-S-H, wrote an article in the Type magazine. And it titled that article, "Warning, the world is not ready for another pandemic." In that article, he said that there were over 1 million viruses that were waiting to affect the world. But one that was very close to mankind at that period, I'm talking about 2017, was a respiratory-related virus that will have the capacity of killing at least 586,000 Americans.
So the warnings have been before now.
Yes, and 65 million people across the world.
So that's the reason for the,
Yes,
the
I'm
global
coming.
government.
Let me just end that aspect. In 2019, October, the Department of Health and Human Services in America, like Ministry of Health in America, came up with a workshop. And in that workshop or seminar, a paper was presented titled "The Crimson Contagion." It talked about this coronavirus that was coming and made references to the first coronavirus, which is severe acute respiratory syndrome, SARS.
So government should be proactive.
Yes.
That's what you mean.
And then the Middle East respiratory syndrome, which was COVID-2, before this one. All these warnings were not heeded. So the world knew, world leaders knew. International Pharmaceutical Organization, they knew. World Health Organization, epidemiologists and virologists and all of it, they knew that a virus was in the horizon. What led me to that is the issue of talking about millions of viruses. I'm quoting them, I'm quoting those reports, that there are millions of viruses waiting to affect mankind.
Waiting to be unleashed.
Yes, on mankind. And that it will be easier for those viruses to spread across borders.
Okay, thank you.
Because of the era of globalization.
Thank you. I'm pressed for time. Yes,
So,
yes.
about Nigeria, we need to take every warning, every health restriction from government and experts very seriously.
Thank you.
Whether we believe in the existence of COVID-19 or not.
Let me take your bite on how worship centers will congregate, or if you are in support of that, or should the status quo remain? Because it's the expectation that from June 1, there could be possible opening of these centers. But do you think it should be?
In the first instance, we should look at it from two perspectives, spiritual and economic perspective.
Okay.
If we are talking about job losses, we are talking about shrink in revenue, we should also be thinking about the worship center or religious bodies interface and engagement. The worship centers are also employers of labor. They are also employers of labor. The worship centers also pay taxes. Do you get what I'm talking about? This engagement has changed. The interface has changed. I quite agree with him that there are religious leaders that have digital engagements, online worship.
Why a lot don't?
Why a lot don't. And that is at a cost. That is at a cost. The implication is that there are a lot of persons within this period, I'm sorry to say, that are religiously and spiritually deficient because no physical engagement.
No physical engagement.
No physical interface. As a result of that, I don't believe closing the worship centers for too long. You see what Donald Trump has said, that religious centers should
essential.
be open. The Americans need more prayers ever in their history, that they need more prayers now.
But as they reopen, if
Nigeria, let me come down to Nigeria.
Yes.
The religious, I agree with him that the set guidelines should be obeyed. There's no problem about that.
And the fear of having a second wave.
Yes, but the religious
should be put into cognizance.
Should be reopened in phases on the basis of capacity and more stringent measures, enlightenment, education, and all sorts of things like that.
When you say should be opened in phases on capacity basis, is that not supposed to mean that all the religious centers wouldn't open at once?
No.
They will open gradually.
Restrictive.
Okay, restrictive. Okay.
It's going to be restrictive.
Okay.
And again, government also have a role to play. Government have a role to play. These guidelines, personal protective equipment, should also be provided by the religious leaders themselves, and government should support such moves.
What about test kits?
No, test kits.
Oh, okay.
No, test kits.
Or let's say screening.
Screening. No, that is agreeable.
Okay.
Tracing, tracking, and treatment are three things that are very important.
Okay.
The tracing is weak.
It's weak.
Very weak. Testing is relatively weak. I also agree with him that you should use this opportunity to test people, do registration, certifying that these persons are not qualified to join the safe society, as I may put it now.
Okay.
Then the 20% should be reviewed to much higher numbers, putting in place the guidelines and obeying those guidelines. Okay,
thank you for that. Now, before I let you go, let's look at the aspect of our oil savings. Now, again, the finance minister did say that as at November last year, we had about $325 million in our oil savings. But as at May 21, we had $72.04 million. Now, what do you think should be the goal of government at this time to reduce cost?
Yeah, we actually, because of time, there are 10 risk factors that Nigeria is going to face after COVID. I just did a study on them, and the risk tendencies in regulation, governance, consumer spending is high, and political risk also.
Okay.
Over 80% of researchers and economists worldwide have agreed there's going to be a recession. 48% of consumer spending has dropped. Consumer spending in the sense that the demand for oil has dropped
drastically.
And there are 3 channels in which the global recession is going to appear. It's going to rear its ugly head. Demand channel, supply channel, and the financial channel. We are going to have another phase of financial crisis. Then we're going to have demand crisis.
As in globally, or you're talking about?
Globally, not just Nigeria. It's a global issue. Demand. The demand for oil is going to drop. The supply of oil after COVID, if this COVID bottom out, we may survive the demand problem, because people will now go to work, will not drive to work, they will buy fare, aviation industry will open up.
Okay.
We may be able to curtail the demand effects. But the supply side effects, in terms of oil production and quota, we may still face that for relatively long time, even up to the first quarter of 2021, because of the OPEC and OPEC plus Russia issues concerning quota and all sorts of things, arguments and all.
That's also a variable to be considered.
It's a variable to be considered. And again, we have to be very careful. Our benchmark for 2020 budget was $57
Yeah.
per barrel.
Per barrel.
And that has been reviewed downward to about $30 per barrel. And the implication of that is that over 1 trillion naira has been removed from our budget, because we won't be able to accommodate for that because of the fall in oil prices.
Even in spite of stimulus.
In spite of stimulus. In spite of stimulus. That is the indications. Nigerian economy.
So that could also increase our debt profile.
Debt profile is even increasing. It's not that it will increase. Our debt profile is increasing. Though we don't have too much concern about the debt to GDP ratio,
Okay.
but we have more concern about the debt to revenue ratio. That is where I'm coming in. If you say religious bodies should be closed for a relatively longer time, the debt to revenue ratio is worrisome. How do we pay our debt? We don't have the physical capacity. We don't have the revenue capacity. There are restrictions. Those that pay taxes, the dead people don't pay taxes. The living pay taxes. Those you've locked down, those that are in isolations, will not pay taxes. That means you have to strategize, build up the physical space so that some people can come up, some institutions can open up, manufacturing sector should gradually open up so that you can build more physical stance to cushion the effect of the debt to revenue ratio.
Okay.
These are challenges that we may face economically. That means government have to, they won't start giving us. IMF, World Bank, they won't start giving us. And the debt service ratio is over 4 trillion.
Well,
you know the implication of that on the economy. We
well,
have to cushion this effect.
we will be having that opportunity as we tie along the discussion. So, big thanks for finding out time, Dr. Nosa Arodoye, for coming here. And well, before I let you go, just a few words in 10 seconds from you, Neville Obakado.
My advice to Nigerians and those that are watching this program is for them to abide by the restriction measures that the government has said we should observe, and experts have said we should observe, because this is a great challenge to the economy of the world and the health system of the world. It is a wake-up call to our leaders, all kinds of leaders, political leaders, economic leaders, religious leaders, to wake up and ensure that they engage the citizens and their members on the need to obey government, on the need to observe personal hygiene, on the need to ensure that what steps that we need to take to be able to stay alive.
Thank you.
Those steps are taken.
Thank you. Your final words,
your
final words of encouragement, because before now you gave us some very downside.
I believe the curve will soon be flattened.
Okay.
Because the epic curve is showing some downward trend, relatively downward trend, and our advice our government to increase their testing capacity.
All right.
And COVID-19 is not a death sentence. It's not a death sentence. And again, the government should develop more strategies where they open up the economy gradually, and the Nigerian citizens should adhere strictly.
Thank you, Dr. Nosa.
Safety guidelines.
Thank you, Neville Opakedo, for taking our time to be part of this show.
Thank you for
well, big thanks, viewers, and this where we call it a wrap on the discussion segment. Next is insurance.